please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
At the moment, the markets are grinding lower. We are, of course, waiting for the Fortis press conference to start. But it's a little worrying. Now, clearly, it has breached that 10,130 mark and moving towards the 10,100 mark. There is a bit of a breadth of the market also, which is worsening. Now it's 2.5 stocks and more that is in the red compared to one in the green. The Bank Nifty continues to remain under severe pain. Largely led by ICICI Bank and Axis Bank, and even the mid caps have, they seem to recede, but they've now gone back to 0.7 in terms of minus.
I just want to point out one stock, Delta Corp. Actually, that stock has been falling quite a bit. There are some reports in the newspapers indicating that the Goa government may roll out a massive hike in casino licensing fees. So that's something that's actually putting a bit of pressure on Delta Corp, and this licensing fee may take effect with respect to next week itself. The annual licensing fee could go up quite a bit for Delta Corp. That's what some brokerages are also writing. So 6.5% lower. Just keep an eye out on that.
Yeah, it's a bit of a precursor as well. We all know that ultimately the casinos will shift from the boat, the river Mandovi where the casinos are right now, and they are moving to the new Goa airport, which is in the North Goa near the Goa-Maharashtra border. And there's quite a bit of land which Delta Corp has already acquired near that area. So,
do you know the map of Bombay?
He knows a lot about Delta Corp clearly and casinos.
No, the map of Bombay, of Goa is, I think, much better in his mind than
I think I'll know map of Goa more than map of Bombay. Yeah, that's for sure. Okay,
well, we have to just map the markets continually because it's showing signs of receding now. Down about 0.65, 2/3 of a percentage point. So 10,120 is just about holding by the skin of its teeth. And, there are a couple of reasons for weakness. The beleaguered stocks, which have one foot in the NCLT, are showing weakness because of probably the upcoming SEBI meeting. The metal stocks are weak because there is global weakness, which is bedeviling them. IT stocks, which would have normally been the safe haven, are today in a bit of pain, partly cognizant, partly the FANG stocks, partly persistent. So there are various reasons why they're also not bringing up the green end of the screen.
Just turning out to be a bit of a pharma day though on the upside. I spoke about Biocon, but see the Aurobindo Pharma intraday chart from the low point. There's been quite a bit of recovery on that stock today. So, okay, not the Nifty Pharma, but a couple of pharma stocks have done well. So that stock is trying to move into the green. So there are a couple of stocks which are still trying to recover a bit.
Okay, but of course the big deal, right? Fortis. Clearly the swap ratio is unfavorable to shareholders. That's what the market is telling you. It's down about 7.5% right now. But what are the contours of the deal? The biggest service care provider in India now after the merger with Manipal. But Ekta, more on that?
Yes, absolutely. Well, like you mentioned, there is going to be a demerge of the hospital business out of Fortis, and that is basically going to be in a swap ratio, like you mentioned, and eventually there will be that relisting of Manipal, which will take place. Now, the second part of the deal, which will take place, will be basically Manipal buying around 50% in SRL Diagnostics. So that will be via 20% from Fortis and the remaining 30% from private equity. And they will also be putting money into RHT holdings. So the total amount that they'll eventually infuse into the company will be over 3,500 crores, where they'll buy out the RHT holding, plus they'll buy out SRL Diagnostics. So what happens to Fortis is that it'll basically become a holding company for SRL Diagnostics, because they'll have a passive stake of around 36%, plus they will get money from that RHT holding stake sale, which they'll do, plus dividend from RHT. But the street seems to be concerned that there will be some amount of money which will go out in the next 12 months in terms of the running of the operations. So net, what will the cash be left on Fortis books? Now, if you're talking about a combined entity about Manipal and Fortis, it's going to be around over 7,500 beds in terms of a combined entity, in terms of the operational capacity. Plus, also, you're going to have occupancy ratios of around 65 to 70 odd %. They're going to get market share and strengthen market share in regions such as Bangalore as well as the NCR region, and margins will be better than what exists on Fortis right now at around 14%.
Oh yes, they have only 6% now, so 16% from Manipal could mean overall percentage higher. We also have Nisha with us, and congratulations yet again for breaking this story and telling us that TPG and Manipal will be the eventual buyers. That's what it has turned out to be. So if you've been watching the channel, you would have heard it first from Nisha that the deal is going to TPG and Manipal. The only issue is now what more details Bhavdeep can announce. I don't know why he's taking so long to start the press conference. It's supposed to start at 10 a.m. and medical profession is known to keep to time. So I'm wondering why he's preparing himself to speak, I would assume. We really don't know whether somebody else is keeping him.
Okay, well, we'll wait for that to start in just moments from now. But as Ekta was pointing out, you know, the geographic reach is also going to be really wide, right? Fortis is known to be to have its presence in north, and Manipal has such a wide reach in the south. So I guess that's one of the big positive takeaways. And the combined entity will have better margins as well. Manipal is known to have much better margins than Fortis. I mean, 15–16%. So I guess operational efficiency.
Yes, I just want to add that, you know, Manipal actually has a new hospital which has come up in the NCR region. So they're going to have around 9 hospitals together in Bangalore and around 10 hospitals in the NCR region. So that's where they're really going to strengthen their position. And it will be a pan-India player. Interestingly, we didn't have financials of Manipal till date. So that 16% margin was actually a positive surprise which came in for the market.
Of course, the most famous hospital still remains the one used in Three Idiots. We've seen the movie.
The Fortis, okay, yeah.
The Fortis Hospital, where Amir Khan takes the scooter inside.
Well, now here there are 5 and more of us waiting for the press conference. Okay. Well, easy. Will he, won't he? Will he, won't he?
Okay, let's also give our viewers a quick check on the markets, right? Because they have been falling. The Nifty is once again...
Okay, he started actually.
Giving us the opportunity, giving Fortis Healthcare and myself the opportunity to talk a little bit about a very important day in Fortis Healthcare's history. We announced late yesterday the demerging of Fortis Hospitals into the Manipal hospital system. This is an absolutely fantastic outcome for both organizations. I think very often when you talk about two entities coming together, it's about one organization plus one organization. This is actually a classic example of 1 + 1 = 11. You have two outstanding healthcare organizations with good geographic penetration, with outstanding medical practices, clinical practices, some of the best doctors and nurses in the world. So two organizations coming together, but actually one big step for Indian healthcare, and that's the big news here. So when I think about what's been happening at Fortis, you all know, I mean, quite honestly, the happenings at Fortis have been quite well publicized. There are very few people, I would imagine, who don't know that. We've had some challenges along the way. That's not a secret by any means. We started with all of the things that have been happening in the healthcare industry. Quite honestly, we've been talking to multiple investors over the past 18 months. It's been grueling. There's been a lot of time, a lot of energy spent on that. And then we've had more recently some of the internal issues with our group and promoter issues as well. It's time for us to get back to doing what we do best, which is healing patients, working and partnering with our doctors and nurses to make sure that we provide the best quality clinical care, the best possible patient experience in the country today. So with that, we are planning to move forward, working with Manipal and building a great healthcare system. I'm happy to entertain any questions, comments. I think that I just want to make a couple of things very, very clear. That when you think about a merger, when you think about any merger anywhere, mergers are not assessed based on what happens the day you announce them. Mergers are not assessed by what happens a day later, a week later. I've spent most of my life in the US, and I remember when I heard about the Time Warner and AOL merger. It was massive news. This was going to be going to change the way communication, the media industry worked in the country and the world. It turned out to be one of the biggest merger disasters in the history of corporate anywhere. I think that when we look at what's happening at Fortis and Manipal, I think there are 2 or 3 things that are important. The first thing you ask yourself is, are you establishing a leadership position? By virtue of geography, by virtue of medical clinical talent, by virtue of the focus that we have on patients and quality healthcare, I think you absolutely establish a leadership position in the healthcare industry in India today. That's number 1. The second thing you look at is, are you creating value? Now today, when you look at the value of Fortis and the value of Manipal, and then the investment that we're putting in, you come up with a number somewhere around the range of 14–15,000 crore as an investment. Value of Fortis, value of Manipal, and the investment that's coming in. The reality is, that's not where the story finishes. That's where the story starts. Because the combined entities going forward, I think the opportunity to exponentially bring about value, bring about return, but more importantly, or as importantly, is to provide great clinical and quality outcomes of patients is the biggest thing. So that's the second piece. Are you creating value? And third, and this is really important when you talk about the healthcare industry, does it matter? Does it matter? The so what? Are you actually making a difference? The healthcare industry in India today is really going through a challenging time right now. The whole discussion, debate about private healthcare, public, government working together, partnering, value proposition, cost of healthcare is a major discussion here. This combined entity actually has an opportunity to be a big part of the solution going forward, because I'm not sure how any of you think about it, but if you look out 3 years, 5 years in terms of what's happening, we really have to figure out where's healthcare in India going. And that type of solution, that type of challenge typically has to be taken up by somebody to start moving things forward. So I think that from a leadership position, I think this is an outstanding step. We're very excited about that. I think from a value perspective, I think this is going to be a big step going forward. And then does it matter? Does it make a difference? Yes, it makes a big difference going forward. So we're excited. Our employees are excited. We've had calls with our senior doctors, our senior management team over the last 2-3 hours. The feedback is very, very positive. Everybody's very excited about it. I just told a group of investors a little while back that, look, at the end of the day, our most important stakeholder are our patients, our doctors, our employees, and they are very excited about it, and that makes us very excited about it as well. So we look forward to an absolutely great relationship, and I think a game changer when it comes to Indian healthcare, and I think by virtue of that, an absolutely outstanding coming together of two great companies going forward.
It's Ashmeet from CNBC TV18. We just wanted to understand, where will the legal liabilities lie? Has that decision been taken as far as the merging of the two entities?
Well, you have two entities, right? You have the Fortis Healthcare entity, and whatever liabilities are in that entity will remain with that entity. And then you have the Manipal entity, and whatever legal liabilities might be there. I think that in any scenario, because the hospitals are coming out and demerging with the business and going into the Manipal entity, legal entities as they are will stay within the entities and hopefully quite honestly resolved. I mean, the idea is not to hold on to legal issues or liabilities for any length of time, but hopefully resolve and move forward as well.
So this is Chetan from BTVI. What is the deal with SRL Diagnostics? Those were the plans of listing SRL Diagnostics earlier. What will happen to that?
Well, SRL, look, we had announced some time back that we were going to demerge the SRL business, and we've had an application for a demerger that's been going forward. At this stage, we're taking a slightly different approach, where TPG Manipal will be investing into the SRL business. We will be, today Fortis Healthcare owns 57% of the SRL business. We will be selling 20% of our business. So SRL continues, 35% of the SRL business will stay in the FHL entity, the erstwhile Fortis Healthcare entity. We will be selling 20%, and the balance will be sitting with other shareholders. So the SRL business, the brand is a very, very strong brand name. It's the leading diagnostics and diagnostic player in the country today. So I think you have a little bit of shift here from a value creation and returning value to shareholders. I think that does that. It's coming at a very good price. I think it also helps us, the Fortis Healthcare business, from a generating cash perspective. But I think the business continues to move forward.
What are the timeline for the approvals that you're looking at?
Look, this is in any merger scenario in any country in the world, mergers take time because there are regulatory approvals, there are processes that we have to go through. So I would say that from a start to finish, we've just announced it yesterday. I think this could take anywhere from 8 to 10 to 12 months going forward. And but again, I think that's a bit of a moving target. It's plus or minus, but it's not. This isn't the type of thing that will consummate in the next 2-3 weeks. I think there is 8 to 12 months that we're looking at going forward.
Sir, again, Ashmeet from CNBC TV18. Just wanted to understand the SFI report and the Luthra report is still pending. When can we expect that? And another one, what does the company plan to do with the remaining 36% stake in SRL Diagnostics? How much cash will be required for the next 12 months as far as business is concerned?
Okay, so there's a lot of questions in there. Let me take them one by one. From an investigation perspective, we are cooperating with. There's an investigation that's being led by SEBI. SFI as well, and we're certainly cooperating with the agencies in whatever way, shape, and form. We want to make sure that whatever the results there are, that we cooperate, we work with these agencies to make sure that we have a good outcome there, and whatever it is comes out. Similarly with Luthra is a law firm in Delhi that's been brought on by our audit committee. So that's actually a company mandate driven by our audit committee. And these investigations are continuing as well. So I don't have a specific timeline. I think that, as we know, these things can take time, but the interactions have been initiated, sharing information has been initiated, and as and when, I think some of these things just take a natural course of time, and we are supporting, cooperating whatever way we can to make sure that we come to a good conclusion with all the facts that need to be shared. So that's the first part of your question. I think the second piece, just around the business and what's happening with SRL. So the SRL, the 36%, the balance of that business that's going to stay in FHL will be staying in the Fortis Healthcare entity. That entity will own 36% and will have a plan to grow the business. So there is the FHL entity will become a healthcare entity that will be focusing on healthcare enterprises. So in addition to what it has with SRL, it will then look to raise cash and to explore investments in other related businesses, related parties that related businesses that are consistent with that philosophy. Now, as a means of doing that, there's a business plan that's been developed. We will have a CEO appointed for that business in the next 3 months, who then will be leading that cause and moving forward with respect to that. And the last piece of your question was just around cash. The SRL proceeds from that 20% share that we'll be selling will be helping put money back into the business, because we've been paying off debt gradually over the last 12-15 months. And as any business, you continue to invest in capital, you continue to invest in operating expenses. Those are the funds that will be used for that as we go forward.
So this is Chetan from BTVI again. Have you spoken to your large shareholders? The stock price doesn't seem to show any happiness as of now with this deal after the deal announcement. So any comment on that?
We are. Look, we continue to engage with our various shareholders. And as I just mentioned earlier, this is a complex transaction. And I think that there is a good bit of explaining just in terms of the why, the how, the whens around it. And that's what we're going to do. I think the cautionary comment here is, look, if I sat here today and told any one of you that I was, every 5 minutes I kept checking to see what the stock price was, that would be a very, very poor approach. We're not doing this. This in no way, shape, or form. What we're doing today between Fortis and Manipal, this is not about the stock price at 2 o'clock today. It's not about the stock price tomorrow. It's about what we believe long term is a very, very solid business proposition. What we believe long term is going to change the face of Indian healthcare. And when you do those things, you create value. When you do those things, you create a solid return for investors and shareholders. So we have initiated discussion dialogue with not just our major shareholders, but our minority shareholders as well, because we think there's a great story to be told. But the thing about great stories is they have to be told. They actually have to be disseminated. They actually have to be shared, so you can actually explain the intricate details of just exactly what's been done. I can tell you that nothing here has been done lightly. This has been extremely, extremely well thought out. Look at the industry for a second. Look at what's happening in the industry today. You have multiple good players in the hospital space today. Multiple. You have a lot of good quality hospital operators in the country today. But who's thinking about where this space is going tomorrow? Who's thinking about, if I ask any one of you at any given time, what's the best hotel in India, you'll all be able to tell me this hospital, this hotel, or that hotel. If I ask you who's got the best papadi chart, we'll all be able to say, because based on where we live, this is where the best is. But the hospital says things aren't so clear. Our space is not clear, because the opportunity to lead and change the industry still remains an open platform there for us. So I have to tell you very candidly, we think this is a great investment. We think the return is going to be there. I think the market is reacting as market reacts. That's okay. That's okay, because I think once we explain the story, once we start to show the moving pieces around it and how this value proposition comes together, I'm absolutely sure that not only will the stock do well, not only will the return on shareholders be there, but actually more importantly, the creation of an institution, an opportunity to make a difference and creating huge value is what the outcome will be. But it takes time, and it's not about, what's the stock looking like at 11 a.m. That is generally not a good indicator. But I think it'll all correct itself, and I think it'll do quite well going forward.
Hi, sir. Bhanvi from Bloomberg Quint. How does the deal value Manipal versus Fortis on EV/EBITDA basis or a per bid basis?
Now, if you look at it, the complexities around when you start looking at the value, we've had a third party, an objective third party opinion just on just exactly what the value is. The comparable, when you look at it on a rate basis, on a value basis, now you have to remember that when we look at our EBITDA versus our EBITDAC is a function of the REIT, the Religare Health Trust component, because that is a cost that comes above the EBITDA line, so that becomes there's a bit of a difference there when you look at apples versus apples. On a value basis, the EBITDA is comparable, but on a rate basis, quite honestly, the Manipal business does does better than Fortis does today. Now, keep in mind, there's some unlocking of value that comes when we actually do the acquisition of the trust, and that'll, as I said, take place sometime in the next 6 to 8 months, and I think that'll certainly change it. Again, on a value basis, I think the numbers are comparable. When you start looking at on a rate basis, on a percentage basis, the Manipal business does better. They have a fantastic operation. They've really done quite well. Their results, even over the last 12, 18 months, continue to be very, very strong. Look, good, bad, or otherwise, we've had some challenges. We've had some challenges by virtue of what's happened in the industry. We've had some challenges, quite honestly, driven by what's happening inside the four walls of Fortis with our group and promoter challenges. But again, I think that one of the good things about what's happening now, going forward, is it's a new day for Fortis. It's a new day for Fortis. We spend way too much time. We spend way too much time talking with investors. Investors meaning people who've thought about investing in the company, not our investment community. We spend way too much time talking about the happenings with our group entities and our promoters. We need to talk about patients. We need to talk about delivering great care. I expect our numbers to continue to improve as we go forward as well. But over a period of time, I think that's another good reason why we're doing this, is it's time to move forward. We've had a great history. We've had a great run with our existing promoter base, but the reality is time to move forward. It's a new day, and that's what we're excited about. So I think as you look forward, I think the EBITDA performance that you look at, where Fortis is today, where Manipal is today, when you bring the aggregate together, I think there's going to be a significant upside going forward.
This is Chetan from BTVI again. So in terms of management, does anything changes?
Look, right now, in this interim time period where you have the Fortis healthcare system and the Manipal system, we continue to operate as independent entities as we do today. The Manipal leadership team is extremely capable, very strong leadership team there. They have some great doctors, nurses. Similarly, on the Fortis side, I think we have a fantastic team here, and I think we have some great doctors and who lead the way for us as well. So I think one of the good things about what's happening here with the coming together of these organizations is we actually share many things with respect to how we run our business, the culture, a respectful culture inside the organization with respect to how we work with our employees, our doctors and nurses, a very patient-focused approach around it. So I think the coming together of these two entities, I think, allows us to do that in a manner that otherwise would not be so simple to do. But I think, again, because our organizations are very similar, I do think we're able to do that. With that said, I think that I think there'll be some discussion, deliberation when you bring two entities together. Just exactly how do you run the organization going forward? I think lots and lots of synergy, very talented people. So in the interim time period, we continue to operate just as we are today, between Dr. Ranjan Pai, between the Manipal team, between the TPG team, and the Fortis team. We'll be having some discussion on what's the best way to run this organization going forward, but that's going to be a bit of a moving target and work in progress.